In this lesson, we're going to talk about something very important. How to learn new words so that you can use them when speaking in English. Hello, my name is Maddie from POC English and welcome to another lesson. One of the most important things that we should do, and a lot of students are trying to do, is to learn new words and then use the words that they have learned when they are speaking or writing. So it's very basic. Learn new words, use them in speaking or writing. But it's not as simple as that. I'm pretty sure you know. In fact, most of the students who are trying to improve their vocabulary are struggling with this. But don't worry, because in this video, I will take you through a step-by-step guide so that you can learn new words and eventually use them when you are speaking or writing in English. Part 1. Where to learn words from. One of the mistakes students make is just to see some words, write down the translation in their mother tongue, and then try to memorize that. But learning individual words is not helpful at all. It's a waste of time. In order to learn the words, you need to have a context. A context will help you see how the words are actually used within a text or a speech. So there are three main sources that you can learn words from. You can use text-based sources, audio-based sources, or video-based sources. Let's start with the first one, text-based. If you like reading books, there are many good vocabulary books out there. One of the best ones that I always recommend is Oxford Word Skills. There are 3 levels to this book: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. This book offers a topic-based approach and presents vocabulary within clear context. Plus, you can choose the book depending on what level you have: beginner, intermediate, or advanced. Next thing you can do if you like reading text is using blog articles. In fact, on my website, you can find a lot of different blog articles in which I've tried to teach you certain words. I've tried to provide very good context for the vocabulary I've tried to teach you. Another thing you can do is to read graded readers. What are graded readers? These are classic storybooks whose level has been adjusted for students. So you can find books that suit your level: A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. Depending on what level you have, you can choose one of the storybooks, you can read them, and you can underline the new words that you think are useful for you. Now, if you don't like texts, but you prefer audio, you can use podcasts. Podcasts are excellent resources for you to learn new words because they provide clear context, and you can usually find a lot of different podcasts out there with different accents and for different levels. For example, if you like the British accent, you can use BBC 6 Minutes English podcasts. They usually come with an audio file and a PDF file of the transcript. That way, not only can you listen, but you can also follow and underline the new words that you want to learn. But if you like to have an American accent podcast, you can use Voice of America, VOA. Similar to BBC podcast, for VOA, you can find the audio and the transcript PDF file. Another method that you can use, which I think is quite fun, is using music to improve your vocabulary. Who's your favorite singer? Choose a singer that you like. Then choose one song that you like. Then listen to the song and check the lyrics. While listening and checking the lyrics, you can also sing along if you know how to sing along with that song, and then underline the new words that you see. For example, one of my favorite singers is Chris de Burgh, and one of the songs that I really like is called Lady in Red. But what about videos? Well, if you are a visual person, that means a person who learns by seeing, videos are great resources. There are many creators out there on YouTube and you can follow their videos. For example, on my channel, you can find a lot of videos in which I've tried to teach you new words, phrases, phrasal verbs, or idioms. You can watch those videos and take notes of the new words that you learn. Alright, so far, we know that to learn new words, we need a context. And to get the context, we can use text, audio, or video-based resources. But, and there's an important but, the words that you learn at this stage are added to the passive vocabulary knowledge. Passive vocabulary? What is passive vocabulary? And do we have active vocabulary? Part 2. Passive versus active vocabulary. Passive vocabulary is like this. If you see the word somewhere, or if you hear it, or if you watch it, or if you read it anywhere, you may remember the meaning, but when you are trying to speak or write, you cannot use it. This is passive. So you may know the meaning back in your head, but you cannot use it. However, active vocabulary, on the other hand, is the words that you have learned before and you frequently use them to communicate. That means you frequently use them in speaking or writing. Now, which one is better? Of course, you would try to make your passive vocabulary active, and this is the key. If you want to be able to use the words that you have learned when you are communicating, you need to make them active. Now, here's an important thing to know. You learn new words, they're added to the passive vocabulary knowledge, and then if you don't practice, what will happen? You will forget. You will forget the words, and then again, you will use text or audio or video, learn new words, add them to your passive knowledge, and then again, don't practice and forget, and then again, you go around and around and around in circles. You will get caught in this vicious cycle of learning new words and then forgetting them, and learning and forgetting and learning and forgetting, and this is really frustrating for students. You may feel like I'm doing something wrong, or that the language is very difficult, or that I'm not smart enough, but none of these is true. You are just not trying to make the passive word active. But how will you do that? There are 3 things you should do. Part 3. How to activate. In order to make your passive vocabulary active, you need to do 3 things. WPR. Write, practice, review. Start with write. It goes without saying that when you learn new words, you need to write them down. Otherwise, how are you going to remember what the words were? But how will you write them down? This is very tricky and very important. For instance, let's say I want to read a text, and from this text, I'm going to learn some new words. Look at the text. Within this text, I have identified some words that I want to learn. Exercise, health, fitness, strength, cardio, wellness, relationships, friendship, support, communication, trust, quality time, loyalty, affection, connection, nutrition, love, understanding, empathy. Now it's time to write down these words, and something that I've seen a lot of students do is this. Exercise, relationships, wellness, support, cardio, affection, love, empathy, endurance, strength. But what is wrong with this method? These are all random words written together, right? I mean, yes, they come from the same text and from the same context, but there is no clear link between the words. For example, what's the link between exercise and relationship? Or between empathy and strength? However, another way that you can take notes and write down the words is this. I have identified 2 categories. Health and fitness, family, friendship, and relationships. Under health and fitness, I will write exercise, strength, endurance, cardio, and wellness. Under family, friends, and relationships, I would write loyalty, communication, trust, affection, and empathy. What I've done is so simple. I've just categorized them, right, under certain topics. Now, what you can see is a group of words that have a strong link. There is a common theme, there is a common thread that connects all these words together. This is called learning words in a topic-based approach. So you select a topic, and under that topic, you list the words related. In this way, in your brain, you can easily categorize them, and next time you're talking about health and fitness, you will remember all the words that you've written. It will help you remember them more easily. So step 1 was writing. Step 2 is practice. How will you practice? At the end of each word list, at the end of each topic vocabulary list that you've written, it is a good idea to write a small sentence or a small paragraph, trying to use as many of those words and phrases as you can. For example, at the end of my list, under health and fitness, I'm going to write a sentence like this. Regular exercise is key to improving strength, endurance, and cardio health, leading to overall wellness. As you can see, it's just a sentence. But in this sentence, I've used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the new words. Similarly, under family, friends, and relationships, I'm going to write something like this. Loyalty is built on open communication, trust, and real affection. And that's how we develop empathy. Again, in this one sentence, I have used loyalty, communication, trust, affection, and empathy, 5 of the new words that I have written down. Now, what does this help you with? First, you practice using the words that you have learned in written form. That means you're basically pushing the words to come out of the passive box in your head and go towards the active box. And secondly, this will help you in the review stage, which we're going to talk about now. How will you review? From time to time, go back to your notebook and then instead of reading the words and their meanings, read the sentences that you have written or the short paragraphs that you have written at the end of it. Now, how is this helpful? First, you will see the words in context. You're not seeing the words alone, but in a text. Second, the text is written by you. So, it's very familiar for you. And third, because they all relate to the same topic, you can easily categorize them in your head. And the next time you're talking about that topic, bam, they're there. So the overall diagram is like this. You use text, audio, or video to learn new words, and then you add them to your passive vocabulary knowledge. If you do not practice, you will forget. But if you follow the WPR steps, you will activate your vocabulary, and eventually your activated vocabulary will be used in spoken or written English. And that's it. Next time you're learning new words, follow this method, give it a try, and then let me know how it went. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and click subscribe if you're new to my channel. See ya!